20 minutes. Sal.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Excellent. Can I have a motion to approve the October 22nd, 2020 special meeting?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the October 22nd, 2020 meeting minutes.
Can I interrupt briefly?
Could I have a
Need to
second?
make the correction.
Hold on. Yeah, I need Sal to acknowledge that he's moving to approve the corrected minutes with the attendance correction, please.
Oh, approve the October 22nd, 2020 minutes with the corrected attendance.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a second on the table?
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Richards, aye.
Oh, John Richards, welcome back. Under old business, okay, let's do number one, update on state grants for police body cameras for
Thanks.
Delaney.
Yeah, I just wanted to update everybody. I know we had a quick special meeting, and thank you for approving that money. We were approved actually, and I don't know if everybody could mute, we're getting some background noise, I think, somewhere. I'm not sure where. Thank you. So we did get approved that Friday. Immediately, the state approved us. So the body cameras were approved. So we're going to be getting reimbursed $50,373.50. So certainly not the whole thing, but by doing it as quickly as we did, the town was able to secure 50% reimbursement on the body cameras versus the 30% we'd receive in the future, or an additional $20,000 back from the state. So accomplished what the objective was, and now hopefully within the next 2 months we'll have those body cameras and dash cameras installed and be in compliance long before the July 1, 2022 deadline.
Okay, everybody happy?
Yep.
Excellent. Number two, Eversource
Excuse me.
question.
This is John. I can see you, but I am claimed to be muted, and at the bottom it says unmute, but it doesn't let me select it. So I think I'm just going to drop out again and try to stay on the phone.
Yeah, stay on the phone, it's better. Okay, so how about the Eversource BAA value question, Mr. Delaney?
Mr. Bornero had asked the question, what was the original request? You'll recall we went from about 121 million down in a staged approach with the settlement. Eversource's position based on their appraiser's value was $65 million is what they were requesting. So substantial drop from there.
Yep. Thank you.
So where do we end up?
It staged down from 121 down over a couple of years down to 92,
Okay,
92 and a half, I believe.
okay, okay.
Can
Fire
you correct the
department
exhibit
study.
that you sent out, Kevin?
I'm sorry?
Can you correct the exhibit that was at the last meeting?
I'm not sure what you mean, correct.
I'm trying to follow here, but it's hard on the phone. Are you saying that the assessment has changed or the payback has changed?
No.
No.
At the last meeting, Sal asked, we settled for about 92 million, but it staged down over a few years. And Sal's request, or his question was, what did Eversource originally request when we entered into negotiations? So we started at 121 million. They started at 65 million. And we settled ultimately at 92, but it came down over a period of years. So it was just to clarify what was their position coming into it. Nothing with the settlement changed at all.
All right, thank you.
Good. The fire department study, Kevin.
Yep. Sorry, Sam, you had asked last time if there's been a formal study on the fire vehicles.
Right.
I did follow up, and there has not been a formal study, although they have been working down to try to remove some of the vehicles as they've been evaluating, and that's been part of the capital plan. There still are vehicles in the capital plan. I think, Tim obviously heard this when we had our meeting a couple weeks ago. but they are looking to come down a little bit, but not based on a formal plan per se.
Okay,
Study.
that sounds good. Okay. The legal opinion for Corporation Counsel.
Yep. You were requested last meeting an opinion from Corporation Counsel on whether the Board of Finance would have a vote in any new police pension plan, or I guess any new pension plan. And the short answer to that is no, there's no authority for the Board of Finance to actually vote and either approve or deny a new or resurrected pension plan. That's really a position that the town manager would hold, because it's a benefits position with approval of the town council. And I shared the opinion from Jeff D'Onofrio, the town attorney.
Yeah,
Okay.
can I just interject that from everyone I've talked to, the mayor, and also the town manager, that although we don't have a formal role here, I think they still are interested in what we think about it. So, I was happy to hear from both sides that they welcome our input.
Okay, maybe we could have a joint meeting when they decide or something. Is that okay? Is that okay?
Works for me.
I think it makes sense.
Yep.
But I agree with Corporation Counsel. I thought it was there. I think we needed to get involved in that. Okay, Board of Education, Board of Finance, details that Sal wanted. I talked to on both items, actually. I talked to the superintendent. We discussed it. And they're having a new, it's not called business manager. There's a new title, John Richards, whatever the title is. They need a little time. I gave them a little time. I said our December meeting would be just perfect because they're undergoing some changes there. But we should get a complete, detailed report from the Board of Education. He has an understanding of what we need. And the superintendent was very cooperative on the phone and everything. We discussed it in. We should get something in. He's going to send it to Kevin, and then Kevin will distribute it to all of us before our meeting. Okay, Sal, is that good?
Yep. We don't have a choice.
Okay. Well, no, but they're going through some changes, so let them deal with the changes. They're going to get a new president of the Board of Education.
Oh, really?
Some
Okay.
new members. Yeah, and so they're going through some structural changes, what I understand, and dealing with COVID and everything, and it's a pain in the neck. So, I figured I'd give 1 month up and down's not going to kill us.
Yep.
So I figured I'd give them a little leadway, but we should get it. I will follow up with them maybe within a week or two, just before Thanksgiving, to make sure we're on target. And if we're not, I will send everybody a new email. But I expect that we should get everything we needed. I gave him I told him there was some dissatisfaction on the Board of Finance, and he understands exactly what we need. Okay.
Okay.
Number 6, go ahead.
My question is, this is John. My question is in regards to what you're saying, the response and how it will come. There is a new finance director to split off of responsibilities that were with Jeff Cugno, and that person isn't to start until December 1st. So did you say that we would not get an answer until after that person is
right
in that responsibility?
Well, I don't know how the superintendent's going to do it. It's not really my concern. That's all I know is that we're going to get a report for our next December meeting. Which, Kevin, what's the date for our next December meeting?
Oh, I don't have it in front of me. I believe it is. Hold on.
The second week of the month, right?
Yeah, it should be. I believe December 8th.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I thought. So we're going to get. I don't know who's going to do it, John. I talked to him, and I told him we'll give him some time for our next December meeting. So we'll get the information.
I'll follow up with Oaks, who currently is the F&O chair, I got a text back tonight from Arroy, and he claims he's still the president until the annual meeting. I'm not sure how that works based on the
Well, I
election
don't
and
know.
when terms.
To be honest with you, I haven't dealt with the Roy. I was dealing directly with superintendent, so
What I'm saying is Kugno had that information before the question was asked, so there really isn't any need to have it go crazy long. So if the new person isn't in place, then leave the old responsibilities with Kugno. He's already got the information. I don't think we should have to wait till December to get an answer.
Right, but that's when we're going to meet to discuss it. You might even get it before. Whenever the superintendent sends it to Kevin, Kevin will send it to everybody. Right, Kevin?
Correct.
Okay. So I will follow up with the superintendent tomorrow morning. I usually call him early in the morning at 7:30 because that's the only time we can talk. And I will make sure that we want it expedited before our meeting, and then Kevin will distribute it to everybody. And then if you guys have any questions, we'll discuss it that night. Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good. Okay, number 6, Board of Finance for COVID. Kevin.
So at the last meeting, you'd requested both a somewhat summarized review for both the town and the Board of Ed. I think this will, for the Board of Ed side, will fall into the same realm of responding with that information. They certainly have been tracking very closely and have been working closely with the state on the education side to secure reimbursements. The Board of Ed has already received that $140,000 initial grant, so that they've already submitted, been approved by the state, and that funding has been returned. And they are working diligently for the $440,000 grant as well. And I'll leave it to them to share some of the details of what went into that. I did share out a document for this meeting on high level what the town has spent the money on, most of which is reimbursable. We did receive approval from OPM for our March through June request, which allows for reimbursement of many of the laptops and other technology, including the WebEx we're using tonight, as well as PPE and cleaning supplies. We did receive approval, but not a formal letter from FEMA for some reimbursement as well. So we haven't seen that money. I'm not sure specifically when the state or FEMA will be distributing the actual cash, but the items that you see on here are generally reimbursable and have been reviewed and approved by those folks. The one item on here that is office modification that we did after July that is listed as not reimbursable, we removed all of the carpeting out of the senior center and replaced it with tiling just as an additional precaution. Tile obviously would hold germs and other things, including COVID and flu and other things. Carpeting will hold it more than the tiling. So Tina had requested that, and we obliged. I think when the seniors are able to finally get back into the senior center, they're going to see some substantial improvements. You know, the work that was approved last year for redoing the kitchen to make it meet standards. The floor is now level, so the tripping hazards are removed. The carpeting being removed, the tiling. There's also been discussions about doing some bathroom upgrades. And then the buses themselves that they're using now have air filtration systems that pull the air in, use ultraviolet light inside and kills germs, including the COVID virus, and then circulates it back out. So there's been a number of steps specifically directed at seniors because they are such a high risk related to COVID. So I don't know if there's any questions on for the town side that I can talk to you about.
Kevin, this is John. I was asking whether the town reimbursement or what goes up through the town to FEMA or the state beyond the Board of Ed request includes any educational related expenses that the Board of Ed paid for.
Yes, it does.
In these numbers?
Yes, in those numbers.
All right. Can they be broken out?
Sure, they could be. Yep.
That was the question that I was asking at the last meeting, because it seems that the Board of Ed paid for things out of their operating budget, and the reimbursement comes through a town request. And if everything went according to plan, the reimbursement would go back to the town's fund balance.
And it absolutely will. When this money comes in, it will be placed into other receipts in the revenue line for the current fiscal year, because I don't know when we're going to get the actual money. And then by default, it would fall down through to fund balance because the expenses would not appear in the current financial statements.
And my reason for asking is that the total Board of Ed cost related to opening up of schools involves several pockets of attempts to get reimbursement, but all of the payments came out of the Board of Ed's operational budget.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, a good portion of them came out of the grant funds at this point, not the town supplied operating budget per se. These items that the town was seeking reimbursement for are above and beyond what they were allowed for the grant. So the way the state has worked the CARES money is every Board of Education is required first to go to the Board of Ed for the money, the two different grants that the Board of Ed had approved. Any costs beyond that could then be layered in with the town elements and reimbursed. But that's why it kind of staged that way, is we're actually following the parameters that were set by OPM and the CARES money that the state received.
Kevin,
All right. All I know is that,
are you done, John?
well, my statement to finish it is that Kugno said that anything that was left over that would go on the town side has to be gotten from the town. I don't understand why he can't share what that number would be, but I don't think we want to lose sight of it. Thank you.
Even share the number with us next time or send it to everybody. Can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, okay. Jerry?
Kevin, I see the expenses here. I'm assuming that within our VNA department, they have additional costs in providing services as related to COVID. Are those costs included in any of these numbers?
They are not. VNA, there's two things that happen with the VNA. First, for a good portion of this pandemic, the state of Connecticut has been providing PPE free of charge to many areas. So our emergency management director initially, and then continuing with our VNA, did receive free of charge considerable amount of PPE equipment. But also at the beginning, Health and Human Services in Washington provided a distribution of money up front based on Medicare payouts to all kinds of medical providers. The VNA was included. So they received just over $33,000 of an upfront grant that they then will have to give a detailed accounting of where the money went at the end of this. So what we've been doing is we separated that out into a special grants account to allow them to spend the money, but also to allow us to track it and more easily report back. So we've kind of isolated the VNA off to the side because they have that bucket of money that was given up front. It's not really reimbursable. It was actually fronted.
But you're actually tracking their additional COVID costs.
We are, and we've asked them for anything additional to run it through that special account so that it will be easier to track and keep up to.
Okay, because one of the things I want to be able to do at the end is compare apples to apples 1 year to the next. I don't want someone coming in and saying, oh, well, this year is really bad because we had all this COVID stuff and nobody had tracked what that was. So I want to be able to go in and extract COVID and then still be able to do our comparison this year to prior year.
Yep.
Okay. How are they doing while we're on them? Do you know what their census is?
It has bounced between the 40s and the 60s. Currently, it's sitting, I believe, in mid to upper 50s. They're on pace right now through 4 months. The P&L would say they're doing slightly worse than last year from a net income standpoint. Biggest challenge there has been on the revenue side.
Yeah, I had them at about a loss of 440,000.
Yeah, that's correct, Jer. They're about 12% behind on revenue. You know, if you take the first 4 months at 33%, they're at 21%.
Kevin, is there any way to know how much of that is due to the impact and the change in the way the rates were structured going back to last January?
We've talked with Wendy about that a little bit. It's particularly hard right now because you've taken a Medicare reimbursement change in January and layered on a global pandemic in March. So, being able to do that would be really hard. They did face some medical challenges. Some nurses were out for a period of time because of COVID, and as a result, without nurses or health aides, we're not able to respond. At this
So what do we
point,
do? Do we farm it out? What do we do? Do we farm it out, or how do we do that when we can't respond? What's the procedure?
when we can't respond,
Yeah,
well,
suppose if all our nurses got COVID, right? God forbid, but every nurse that we have has COVID. What is the director going to do? Just out of curiosity.
well, if she had available per diems, she could ask per diem nurses to step in and do that work.
But what if we don't? What if we don't? What does she do?
If we don't, then she would have to turn down the referral. She would have to turn the referral when a hospital calls that they're discharging a patient. She would have to say, I can't take it.
Okay.
Just as a preparation thing, Kevin, because we're going to be going into budget season. I think we're going to, at least me personally, I'm going to want to see a little bit more from them this year than we've seen in the past. And I'd like you to prep them to doing an in-depth presentation one of our nights to go through both the impacts of this new reimbursement system. I understand COVID and all that, impact, but someone still has to be able to look at what we're doing for revenue in terms of how many cases we're handling, possibly revenue per case, and be able to come up with us and tell us, are we anticipating doing even worse going forward, or are we going to do better going forward? So just saying,
I agree with you,
I'd like
Jerry.
to see a little bit more this year.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. We should have them at our meeting and present everything that they can. So that okay, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. I will touch base with them.
Absolutely.
You could just warn them, now so that they could start preparing.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely.
right. You got the warning from Jerry. Okay. Are we all set with this? Sounds good. Let's do new business. Jerry, make the motion.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2022 budget calendar.
Second. Can I have a second? Okay, fantastic. We have any discussion on the calendar? Dates are good. Everything's good. Okay. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Excellent. Jerry?
John, it's an aye, but as amended with Jerry's statement.
What? I didn't hear you, John. What did you say? I'm sorry.
It should be as amended with Jerry's statement. I don't know that any specific day has been assigned to the B&A.
All right. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to move to approve the calendar year 2021 Board of Finance meeting calendar.
Second,
Do I have
Sal.
a second, please?
Second, Sal.
Thank you, Sal. All in favor?
I do have a
Aye.
question on that.
Go ahead,
I
Jerry.
noticed that the August meeting is not the second Tuesday. Is there a reason for that?
The basic reason of that is I go on vacation the second week in August. You're welcome to meet. I won't be there.
Well, we usually don't meet in August. We usually don't meet in August.
Yeah, that's okay.
Ideally, we
just-
won't meet.
Okay.
All right, we're okay. Okay. So, are we all in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Let's have the finance update from the finance director. Go ahead.
All right, I will be pretty quick with this. We continue to have some pretty strong results. I do want to draw your attention to a few things that are positive indicators. Throughout the year, one of the risks that I've identified is potential shortfall in state reimbursements. There was always that uncertainty with COVID, and obviously the legislature wasn't meeting for several months. So what would happen with this year's budget? We did receive the first installment of the ECS grant, which is our largest single education grant in the general fund. You may recall we get the grant in 3 installments. We get 25% now, 25% in January, and then the other 50% in April. So the state did make the payment at the end of October, $1,467,650. So that is a strong positive. Additionally, the state did pay us our annual municipal stabilization grant. This came in a few years ago and has been included in the general fund ever since. So they made the full contribution there as well for this fiscal year. And then last state grant we did receive, it's modest, but it's money's money, $6,108 of pilot money for the town. So the state at this point has paid out the first of 2 installments for TAR. They've paid the first 25% of ECS money, municipal stabilization, and in lieu of taxes. We expect the second TAR to come in January timeframe. Municipal projects grant is expected in the spring. And then I'm still on pace to expect the rest of the ECS money in January and then again in April. So I left the risk on there for the state just until we see a little bit more in January, and then I'll pull it off. But I think that risk is not just low, but very low at this point from all indications. Second thing I wanted to draw your attention to is on the other receipts. If you look in the other services and earnings on investment section in the revenue, you'll see there's the numbers up to almost $242,000. That includes $235,000. On October 28th, the town closed with Newport on 913 Farmington Ave. So we have officially sold 903, 913, and 861. We still do own 889 Farmington Ave, which was unfortunately, the heavily contaminated area. They're still planning to move forward with all of that. But the $235,000 that you had appropriated last fiscal year so that we could move forward with construction on the boulevard has been returned. It's been placed in here, and come the end of the year, it will go back into fund balance where you had taken it out last year. And then third, you'll see use of fund balance is now on here. That's the $252,992 that you had appropriated on the special meeting for the body and dashboard cameras. And when the $50,000 is returned from the state, it will go into our state grants area, and it will ultimately flow back to fund balance there as well. So all of those during October were positive moves. There was always that uncertainty, and I think everything is playing out about as well as we could hope given the circumstances. Just a couple of other things I'll draw your attention to. One, I did get the new liability from 7/1/2020 for the pension fund. As you can imagine, that number went up. We were expecting it as interest rates went down. The nice thing is we've seen a rebound in the past week or so. Interest rates have gone up considerably. That liability, if I net out the 2 people who retired, one in July and one in August, is just shy of $10.5 million. If I take into account our assets that we have at Prudential and at ICMA to help cover that cost, our unfunded liability sits at $5.5 million. So well below the general fund unassigned fund balance. The town is in a position to cover, and as interest rates go up, that unfunded liability would actually come down. So we're seeing a positive trend there. I do expect an additional payout in April. and not sure what others are going to do, but we are in a pretty good position for that.
Kevin, quick question.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm hearing through the town rumor mill that the chief might be retiring soon. I'm assuming that would be a payout in excess of 2 million.
Well, if he were to retire now, it would be less than it was a month ago, because the interest rates went up. I mean, I would say it's reasonable with one exception. There are 10 people, one of whom will be paid out in April. So of the 9 that are left to go at any time, one is about $500,000. The rest you can assume are going to be between $1.5 million and $2 million. And that number will grow with every year, not just with interest rates, but with every year that they continue in service. But as far as the chief's decision, I'm not aware of any paperwork filed. So I will tell you, everybody who is still, all 9 who are in the plan, can retire at any time. They have the option. They're eligible. They all could go if they choose to.
Thank you.
But
All right, let's hope not.
Kevin, I have a question for you though. You said each of them has a liability of between 1.5 to 2, but if there's 12 people, how is it that our actuarial liability is only 10.5 million?
Well, there were 12. I've stripped out 2 of them who have already been paid out. So that 10 million is net of the person who was paid out in July and the person who was paid out in August. Because they were paid in July and August, the 12 are on the liability at 7/1. But I have taken them out. The assets are gone, so I wanted to match the liability to the assets that are on the worksheet.
Okay, so the footnote down the bottom where it says 3 additional retirements being considered. Okay, all right, I think I got it. All right, 3 inactives. I mean, up above it says there's 9 actives and 3 inactives.
Yes.
So and you're saying of those 12, 2 are already out in the determination of the 10.5 million.
Well, the 1.5 to 2 million I'm referring to is just for the 9 people.
Yeah.
The others are much smaller. The 3 inactives are substantially smaller. Those are people who worked for
9 times 1.5 is at least 13 million, and this liability is only 10.5.
Right.
So it doesn't compute in my mind.
Well, you have you have the 12. So you have one who is about $500,000, and you have some others who are lower than that.
Okay, but you just said all the 9.
And then you have 2 who
9
left.
were 1.5 to 2 million.
Yeah, but then you have 2 who left. One in July, one in August. So you'd have to back off. You'd have to back off their liability.
All right. Well. Okay.
Kevin, this is John. Doesn't it make sense that you could put the 9 people down in a grid and show the actual amount so we don't have to guess whether it's $1.5 million or 2 or somewhere in between?
I could, if you'd like to see. I mean, I have the actuaries. Every year I get the actuaries' underlying numbers by person. That way, when someone begins to talk about retiring, I know what the liability, I should expect their liability to be. The person.
I'm just saying if you list them as A through H or whatever it turns out to be, then it answers, because Jerry's calculation is using the bottom edge. And even if you give one at $500,000, and I don't want to go through the math exercise now, it just seems like a chart should be available to essentially put them out there. And even if you put them in random order and you don't assign them a letter each time, just show nine numbers.
Yeah, we don't want names out there.
Yeah, definitely don't want names.
No, but I'm just saying that Jerry's point is taken, that when you're trying to do it crudely at the lowest of the range, the number still seems to be short. So there must be an easier way to do this rather than try to do a head exercise. There's 9 numbers. Why don't we just display them?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you that. I'll give you that next meeting.
Thank you.
That's no problem.
Then that's a good idea. Good. Thank you, John. Okay, Kevin, got anything else?
No, not unless there's any other
All right.
questions.
Well,
I have a-
hold on. Go ahead.
I have a
Go
question,
ahead, and I'll
Kevin.
talk after. Go ahead, Terry.
Park and rec revenue on your risks sheet, risks and opportunities. You're showing $100,000, medium, high risk. I guess that we're not gonna get that revenue. There any variable costs that go with that? Are we gonna see budget savings because they aren't running those programs, or how's that work?
It is certainly possible. It depends where the shortfall comes from. So, for example, if the shortfall were to come from basketball programs, then the answer would be yes, because you wouldn't hire referees and other folks to run it. If the shortfall comes from the pools and we do like we did last year, then you would not have the revenue, but you would have some of the costs. So it kind of depends on where those are coming from. But I would say there's at least some cost savings against that. Hopefully, the whole vaccine stuff that we've been hearing recently is true. And maybe by March or April, the whole world is in a better place. I don't think that does much for basketball this winter, but might do a lot more for swimming pools and other things in the spring and summer. But that's why I call it out as a potential risk.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Before we adjourn, I called the assessor today. I had a long conversation with him over a lot of things. Our potential construction that's going on Farmington Avenue and the stuff on the Berlin Turnpike. And what I wanted was an estimate of what he thought was going to come in taxes, because I would imagine as an assessor, he had to do some type of cost analysis, which he said he did. And so I told him I'd like him to come at our next meeting where we can discuss it, because I think we should know what the potential tax revenues are on these buildings and how he's going to tax them. And then I asked him, I'd like to know out of curiosity, I hope the board does too. I mean, I see these businesses going up in town, new hair salons, potential maybe more restaurants, and what's the tax revenue on an hair salon? What are we going to tax on a hair salon? Things like that. I out of curiosity, I think it would be to our best interest to find out whether these little small businesses are going to bring in some type of tax revenues and how we tax them. I think it's important. I think we know how we tax them, because I didn't know that a hair dryer, for example, is a taxable item. I didn't realize that, but it is. He told me. So I've invited him to come to our meeting. I've told him he could call in or he come to our meeting. I mean, I would imagine we're going to meet in person. I mean, Kevin, have they made a decision on the mayor? Are we going to meet in person? What are we going to do? Do you know?
I don't know that a decision has been made. I know Arosh has broached the subject, given that we've reversed back to phase 2, especially given what we've experienced in town operations in the past week or two, that maybe we should be going back to virtual meetings out of an abundance of caution, but I haven't heard any specific decision.
Okay. All right, well, Kevin, yes, I figured I'd let the board know. Is that okay with the board? I think it'd be really nice to have the assessor come in and he could explain to us exactly what our potential revenues are going to be in the next 5 years or 4 years or 2 years, or whenever these projects actually get underway, which are not underway now because they haven't taken out any building permits. So we don't have anything underway, but we might in the near future. Okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So, Kevin, I told him that I would tell you if you could send him a formal invitation and what time he can come. We'll give him about 20 minutes to give us a presentation, if that's okay, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll touch base with you.
Yeah, I talked to him, and he knows exactly what I would like to see. So I just told him we send him a formal invitation. So if you can do that for us, that would be fantastic.
Yep.
Okay. And also,
Sam?
Kevin? Yes.
Sam, this is John. When we finish here, will you and I and Kevin stay online so we can see why we aren't able to be part of the video?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I just
Also,
didn't want to
Kevin,
lose it
can you-
before you adjourn.
Yeah, Kevin, can you get us a number, just out of curiosity? Because if they're going to break ground, I don't know which project is going to go first. But what's the dollar number of what these building permits are going to cost us? Are we going to waive the building permits? Are they going to pay the building permits? Because that's going to be a big dollar amount. You know, if when Newport takes a building permit, I don't know how they're going to build it. They're going to build a $1 million thing, or they're going to take it out for $17 million, or they're going to go on a per building purpose. And how do they value that building for a building permit? And that's going to be a big dollar that's going to come in. That's going to come in actually on that project, on the projects on the Berlin Turnpike. So if you can get a number for us at the next building from the building department, what that actual numbers, or maybe you know what the number is, and tell us in the process when our assessor gives us, so we have a general information on the exact dollars and potentially when are these people going to take out these building permits. Is it going to be this fiscal year or next fiscal year? Because I think I'm just looking for some revenue.
Yep. I will talk to the building official.
Excellent. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn. Sal?
Second,
Excellent. Second, please. Mark, did you
Thanks,
second?
Jerry.
second.
Oh, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor, but not
Okay.
to close the meeting?
All right. So
All right, take care,
let's
guys.
go on and
See you, Dana.
tell us how we.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Good night.
everybody.